A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. Today is a rather special showing because for starters, I'm in Amsterdam. Secondly, I'm at the headquarters of the largest travel company in the world. And thirdly, I'm about to interview the global CEO of none other than Booking.com. She's a rather interesting personality. She's, of course, rated amongst the top 50 most powerful women in the world. But apart from that, she is the global CEO and she cycles to work. So what an interesting journey this is going to be. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Gillian. Truly a pleasure having you on ET Now and Brand Equity.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction.
But first things first, I believe that you've been with Booking.com since 2002.
Yeah.
And you're almost a Booking.com lifer.
Yeah,
and
correct.
You've gone through all the functions and climbed your way up to the top. Yes. So as a complete insider to Booking.com, what would you say as chief executive now is the most stark observation in your head when you run a travel company today versus, let's say, 1 or 2 decades ago?
Yeah, so there's big differences, even if you think yourself how you book your travel today, right? How we don't even think about that. I think we tend to forget, right? Sure. How different it was in the past where there were brochures or you had to call by phone. I think if you think about travel companies today, it's much more digital. And also if you think about the mobile world, which today most travelers use, right, to book their trip, that is a completely different experience. But that also means that companies that drive these innovations look differently today than they've looked at the past, right? Where it was in the past, it was a lot about people basically on the phone, and today it's much more in technology, right?
Right. Gillian, give me a sense of what the global travel industry size is today.
Well, the global travel industry size will be, I think, over $1 trillion, right? Or maybe 3 trillion. It's enormous. I don't even know that people understand the size that it really is. But accommodations alone is already, it's so big.
But out of this 3 trillion, everything that's accounted for is actually online, or does this include offline as well?
I mean, travel, and people underestimate that. Travel today in many areas is not being booked online, right? Even though we think it's quite digital, but there's many places where this is not the case yet. So
you're saying there's still so much more potential in terms of growth because large parts of the world are still offline in their travel
yeah, but
behavior?
It's also the kind of trips, right? You see many people, they book tours, right? So things like that, or they travel in a group. So and there's many forms of travel where booking today is not operating in, but that is maybe not digital today.
Sure. How does it feel? As a Dutch company, predominantly a Dutch company, which is now a global company,
yes.
One has to say that Booking.com, although you've been around for a while and you're super successful, and all of us might have made bookings via Booking.com, the fact that you've not been very out there and in your face to educate everybody about Booking.com, so you know what I mean? Like you're building a brand, but you didn't really focus on messaging saying we're Booking.com. I think that's coming up now, slowly and steadily. Was that conscious? Was that strategic? Or was that how it panned out?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you think about Booking in the past, most companies build a beautiful product and then they start marketing it in their market or in other markets. Booking.com built a very basic product and then started learning from customers how to make improvements on the product. And also the way we marketed was only through digital channels in the past, because we wanted to make sure we could measure if we could actually reach the customers, right, that had the intent for travel. And if you think about certain channels are ideal for that, if you think about Google, for instance. So, and that's really how we started growing the business. But I think already quite some time ago, we started realizing that we also need to make sure we build a brand and that people understand what they can expect from Booking.com. And in many markets, you see that we're out there really talking much more about the brand Booking.com.
Okay, so you're saying, was it conscious or not?
It was conscious.
It was conscious
in the past.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
absolutely.
conscious.
Yes,
it was conscious.
Yeah.
But I think soon you've had the realization that it's important to you be out there and shout out.
Absolutely, and
you know.
it's quite an interesting business case, I think, because there's not many companies out there where the brand actually is so global and actually so known,
Right.
without even doing a lot of brand advertising.
Right. I'd be interested in getting to know your revenue model, in the sense that you're in the accommodation space. What is your maximum revenue coming from hotels?
Yeah, so we don't give out specific numbers on market. So, but we basically, how our revenue model works is that basically properties can list on Booking.com. We don't charge properties for that. We don't charge for the service we deliver to properties. But basically, properties will pay Booking a commission once customers actually stayed to their properties, and that's how Booking operates.
Sure. But in the properties category, what would be your most lucrative category? Would those be hotels, or would I be wrong in that assumption?
Yeah, so we've been operating in hotels for the longest,
of
right?
Course,
so we have the largest offering in hotels, but the fastest growing is if you think about the alternative accommodations. Think about hotels still, and the amount of rooms hotels have. On average, I think that will always be a very big
They will be the dominant revenue stream, won't they?
Yeah, well, I don't know the future, right? But it's still very important for Booking.com, yeah.
And you're saying the fastest growing category is really this alternate accommodation, which is essentially homestays.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's different type of categories, right? So if you think, for instance, here in Amsterdam, it's apartments, and some are professional, but some are that people are renting out their apartment, right? So that different shades, but it's also the houseboats that you see maybe on the canals, right? So it's all kind of unique places to stay.
So I'd be interested to know how does one develop consumer loyalty for an online travel aggregator? Because if I just looked at myself as a case study, when I'm booking, right, I would check every possible travel aggregator and then go with the one that's giving me the best price.
No, absolutely, and price is extremely important, and Booking has a lot of focus on price. That's why we have, of course, a lot of deals out there. We have a program called Genius, which offers discounts for loyal customers. But also a fact of the price is that Booking wants to make sure if you have a certain budget that we have a diverse offering which you can choose from. And you see, that's what customers really want to see. They have a budget and they want to make sure they understand what is the best type of accommodation I can find for the budget I have. And that's where Booking focuses on a lot. And then there's, of course, the quality of the experience in making your booking and the type of service you deliver. And in many countries, the service is also very important, because if you only speak your own language, you want to make sure that if I have a question, that I actually have a company that can help me in this language as well. And that's why Booking offers 43 languages today on our platform.
In terms of penetration, and I really mean this on the supply side, would you say that where would your penetration levels lie in terms of coverage of the entire world?
Yeah, it's very difficult to say that.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's very difficult because there's not always all the numbers out there to understand, do I now have all the supply, or because we're still adding supply even in the Netherlands, right?
Really?
So, well, if you think about the accommodation like apartments, or I mean even in Amsterdam, people can rent out their house for around 30 or 60 days, right? So that's everybody can do that, right? So that's all potential for Booking to add on our platform if people want to do that. So it's not so tangible to understand how big that is. But for sure, Booking.com will be the company that has the most supply in the world.
That's how you've expanded, right?
That's how we've expanded, but you also see we're using technology like weather In India it might be more consistent, but in Amsterdam
Sure.
it will change what you're going to do on a day that it rains versus a day that it's sunny, right? So we actually more and more with technology are helping customers to basically have a perfect stay once they're out in their destination.
So basically your app will tell me that today it's going to be a rainy day, hence
it delivers you activity suggestions which are already based on weather data.
If I had to ask you, to juxtapose Booking.com with Expedia and Airbnb and your other competitors, what would be your standout for a consumer to keep coming back?
Yeah, so it's a few things. Like if you think about Expedia, is much more into travel, or has been, right? They've been offering flights and cars and packages. That's not something that Booking has done. Booking has been very focused on accommodations. The reason why we did that is because we felt doing accommodations right, so helping customers to find the best accommodation is already so complex. That we thought we first want to do that well and then expand that offering all over the world. And then once we really have done that, we really said, okay, what can we now do more for customers, right? So, and it's a very targeted approach. And then it's really about at what moment does a customer need what service from us, right? So if they're in stay, what do they need, or when do we need to help them with transportation? So it's a different approach that Booking takes, but we've always started with only accommodations and really to build the largest breadth of selections for customers out there, and which already was of course a big job to do all over the world. We operate in over 200 countries and territories in the world. So we've built a very global business, but now we need to make sure in places like India that we actually take another step to make sure that we truly understand how can we even make more improvements as to what Indian customers are looking for.
Right, but what would be, on a global scale, what would be the next big move for Booking.com? Like what would be Booking.com 2.0? Would you say it would be accommodations plus experiences, which means attractions?
I think, it sits in two areas. The one area is making sure that we keep growing in accommodations, even though we might seem like already a big player, but in many markets, Booking.com still has lots of ways to grow, or is a lot, like in India is also an example.
Sure.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is to really build this connected trip for customers, which will take time, but we do see that there's still a lot of need for customers, that they need help in their end-to-end experience of finding and booking, and when they're in stay for their trip.
Okay, so it would be attractions, in-stay, and
in-stay services, attractions, transportation.
Yes. So if you are actually looking at transportation, why limit yourself just to the local transportation, and why not the mainstay travel transportation, which is really flying?
Yeah, so I'm sure at some point we'll start to do experimentation with flights. We have a link out to a company called Kayak, which is part
which has recently been
of
acquired,
the group. So we are looking more and more into how can we help customers also with their trip. We realize that many customers have a budget for a trip, which the flight is an element, the accommodation is an element. So there's lots of work to do for Booking in the future, but we will take it step by step.
I'd be curious, so would you say that because you have Kayak in your portfolio within your holding company, would Booking take a conscious call and saying that no, we will only specialize in accommodation plus and not flights, because Kayak already does that, and if you do flights, it might be cannibalization?
Oh no, that's not, because if you think about the group and the customers that are on Booking, right? For us, we focus on the customers that are on Booking, right? Or and Kayak is a different type of model as well. Kayak is a flight comparison as well. We often service the booking to customers, so we're really different models. We of course can utilize, right, the strengths from these companies, but for Booking it's really focused on the booking customer.
Could you focus, and shed more light on the connected travel?
No, so basically if you think about what Booking is doing, is really building a marketplace, right? To make sure that we offer much more than an accommodation. And through data we know that customers need help. When they travel a city they don't know what's the best way to transport from the airport to their property. They don't know what are the nice things or must-sees in a city, what's the best restaurant. So, and we're trying to bring that all together.
When do you think you have really started, focusing on the Indian market? I mean, has it been like a couple of years?
A couple of years ago, because if you think about Booking, we already brought many customers into India without even focusing on the Indian customers. We have many customers already visiting India. So therefore, it's been a lot, I don't know exactly what date, but quite some time already.
And what's your experience been, given that we're such a tough market, we're so complex and we're so different? Like India is, it's not a homogeneous market. It is it's so difficult to get.
Yeah, I mean, what we've learned over time is that the quality of supply, which you've seen, have made a big change, and I think companies like Oyo also contributed to that. So, and that we have seen changing over time, and that's also why Booking is able to facilitate much more supply on our platform.
Would you say that, although you've been in existence for a much longer period than your recent competitor, that's Airbnb, who specialize in alternate accommodation, would you say that, you, because of your, understanding and expertise and dominance in the space, you should have been able to shout out Airbnb a lot better than you actually did?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Airbnb, of course, has a different business model. So I don't know if we would be able to do that, right? It's also a matter of how you prioritize at what moment in time. And I think if you compare to Europe, for instance, we even in the space where Airbnb is active, Booking had apartments on our platform, right? So I think if you think about the United States, of course, Airbnb in this segment is much bigger today than Booking. But I think it's also, as a business, how you prioritize and at what moment in time, right? And I think competition is also quite healthy. And we have many competitors all over the world. I mean, travel is a big industry. And I think if you think about travel, it's many companies that work together, because in the end, the trip of a person contains of a flight, which they might book somewhere, an accommodation, a car, and then once they're local, they do even more activities. So it's very important that companies also work together. But I think Booking, and even in India with Make My Trip, right? There's many companies that are very successful in travel. Yeah.
What would be your total spend on Google?
Yeah, we don't really give out our specific spend on Google.
Overall spends?
Well, last year you can find that in our list. We spent, I think, 4 billion on performance marketing. 4
billion?
Yes.
Okay. From an independent hotelier or, let's say, property owner perspective, right? I think over a period of time, or even maybe now, selling on Expedia, Booking.com, Airbnb, or whatever else, Make My Trip maybe. Do you think currently they're all pretty close in terms of the economics of it? Or are there stark differences which incentivize them to choose you versus somebody else?
Yeah, I think it depends, but I think overall economics are quite similar.
Yeah.
The only thing is there will be difference in payments or in charging customers versus properties. But so that, I don't really know. But Airbnb has a different model than Expedia and Booking, right? So.
Yeah. So I'm saying, do you see that as a challenge going forward?
No, I don't think
You
that
don't.
that's a
You don't see
challenge.
that. So you would you say that your biggest strength, of course, apart from all your nuanced offerings, would be the scale?
Yeah, the skill, but also I think we're a very effective marketing channel for many of our partners. And I think that's a huge advantage for partners because Booking helps them to tap into demand that is very difficult for our partners to do themselves.
Right.
And we, I mean, even to many partners in India, we're bringing customers from all over the world. And with these languages and that complexity, we bring a lot of value to properties.
Yeah. When you look at the Indian market, while you've seen some traction in terms of people wanting to travel because you see more and more disposable income now coming into the middle class, we're still a pretty unsophisticated country when it comes to travel. What have been your key learnings in that market, which have been, roadblocks of sorts, which I'm sure you must have had because it's a difficult market?
Yeah, so I think payments is a good example and credit
cards. But what's your solution to that?
Yeah, the solution. Well, we have, for instance, a lot of offerings where customers don't need to use credit cards, for instance. So that's something that, so we always try to make sure we take these roadblocks away. I think in India, if you think about infrastructure, that's still, I think, for travelers still today, a challenge.
Which market, according to you, is most similar
to India?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's always very difficult, I find, because even if you say which market is similar to China, there's elements that are the same, but there's also elements that are so different,
of course,
right? So
of course.
I always find it difficult to say, oh, that market is very similar to this market.
Would you say your biggest threats going forward or challenges would be that, one of these digital behemoths, whether it be Amazon or it be Google or even Facebook for that matter, in their whole expansion of their own company, look at travel and accommodation as a meaty route to take because they already have the consumers. They're offering so many services, so this could be another route.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, and we've seen over time, right? Even Google, they offer Google Flights.
Exactly.
So, I mean, but then still, I think also Booking.com is still growing fast, right? So we're able to keep adding value to customers. And I think the work that we are doing with our supply and the knowledge that we have built up and how much effort we put in building this experience in our products, I think that's something that we see that keep delivering to customers. We're building a strong brand, so people really know us. They use our app, right? So, but of course, anybody out there in the future can be a competitor or can move into accommodations. We just need to make sure we keep delivering what the customers are expecting from us.
I don't know how it works in your culture, but in our culture, usually all the responsibility is shouldered by the woman. So which is why we ask the question, how do you handle it? Because if you're the woman on top, even in your career, and you're also an active member in the household, and how are you balancing out your life? So does that work in your culture too, or are men different here?
No, I think there's so many similarities, but I have 3 children.
Wow.
So it's a busy life, but I always say I manage it a bit by my energy balance. So because it's important if I come home that I still have energy for my kids and for the family. And if I'm at work, I need to make sure I have enough energy to run this business. And whenever I feel that energy is out of balance, I try to correct it.
I also believe that, in Booking.com globally, you have 60% women employees.
Yeah, over 50%.
Over 50% are women.
Yeah.
And in your technical verticals, 20%?
20%. Yes.
That's a pretty good number compared to the average.
Yes.
So I'd have to ask, if you're an employee at Booking.com, given that you are so passionate about travel and travel is your core business, do you incentivize your employees to travel?
Yeah, we do, and we do, and we I think a few years back we gave everybody a GoPro to also start filming their travel. Okay. So we collect all of that material as well because we have so many great travelers in that company, or at least they're very passionate about travel, and Yeah, no, and myself as well. I love to travel.
But give me, 3 things that I need to look out for, that people should look out for from Booking.com in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so 3 things. I think hopefully everybody in India will know Booking.com and will understand, right, why Booking.com is the company that will help them build the most perfect trip. And I think also, that, like I said, that people really see that they're now able to book an attraction, a restaurant, their transportation. So these are all new innovations, and that through technology we're able to build a much more seamless experience than there's out there today.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Gillian. Truly a pleasure,
Yeah.
and thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you.